Okay, good day, everyone. This is Jeff Peeples from the Mission Zero podcast. Today we have a special edition and a special guest. Today we have Joy Taylor. Joy is the principal at Grant Thornton and the national managing partner. I think she lives in Chicago. Is that correct, Joy?
No, actually Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
Right outside
Okay.
of Philadelphia.
Okay. Just wasn't sure. I knew somewhere up there outside of the South. You know, if it's north of the Mason-Dixon line, I don't know anything about it. But Joy has blessed us with our time here today. Joy, you're coming on here because it's International Women's Month, and the Mission Zero podcast is about a lot of things, and governance is one of those things. And part of governance is the promotion of traditionally not recognized or traditionally not recruited or a myriad of different things in the business world. And female leaders is certainly something that's absolutely rising. But, you know, we've had business world has had a history of being a male-centric thing, and we like to I guess form a spotlight on that. And you are certainly a leader that we wanted to look at and talk about. So at the very start here, if you don't mind, can you give us a history of yourself? And this can be as deep as you want it to go, as personal as you want it to go, but just to get to know you and what brought you to where you are now.
All right. So you will be pleased to know that I am also from the South. Just a data point of interest.
Oh, I saw that, and I've got a bone to pick with you about that. So you go right ahead.
That's all right. So I was actually born in a ridiculously small town in Missouri. Population 21, to be very specific. I am from a little town called Cottonwood Point, Missouri. And I was born there because my father and my grandfather ran a ferry service. They took a ferry, taking automobiles and passengers across the Mississippi River, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And we lived in the middle of nowhere, so I was all but homeschooled for the very beginnings of my life. And my dad decided to go to medical school. And when he did that, he left me in the care of my grandparents for a little while. My mom and dad left us, and I learned to work on the ferry. And the reality was I'd wake up every morning about 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd go to the ferry with my grandfather. We'd work for a while. I'd either get driven or take a horse back to the house. I'd go to school or class with my grandmother. Then I'd go back to the ferry, and I would then work until dinner time. My dad then finished medical school, and he relocated our family, which is my mother, my father, my brother, and myself, to Clearwater, Florida. So I grew up on the beaches of Florida. I am not complaining in any way, shape, or form about that. And I was very fortunate to attend the University of Florida in Gainesville for my undergraduate degree, which is in public speaking and speech writing. I then ended up going to graduate school, for which I have an MBA, a master's in marketing, and a master's in statistics. And that turned out to be a really unique and fine combination for the business world of the future. I ended up right out of graduate school having an incredible opportunity to work with the New York Yankees in their marketing and public relations division, right when they were building their spring training facility. And it happened to be the year that Derek Jeter was coming to the majors. Okay. So it was quite a busy time within the New York Yankees. And I learned from the Steinbrenner organization the value of branding and the importance of utilizing the English language in both written and oral communication. That was something that was very important to Mr. Steinbrenner and to the organization as a whole. I then left and I started my first entrepreneurial journey. I was a part owner in a ferry service, of all things. And I know there's no straight path in my life, by the way.
There shouldn't be.
I owned a ferry service with 2 other gentlemen, and we took 664 passengers a day from Southwest Florida to Key West, actually.
Okay.
It was called Key West Excursions. And we ended up selling that business off about 3 years later. And then I ran into a really interesting identity crisis, which is I didn't really have a job. And the irony is I then went back to Mr. Steinbrenner and I said, listen, I need some help. I need some contacts. I need some mentors. And he's like, listen, let me introduce you to a friend of mine. I'm like, that's fine. Who might that friend be? Well, that turned out to be Mr. Jack Welch at General Electric. Of all things. Like, doesn't have a friend. That's quite a friend, exactly. And the reality was I found myself being very welcomed into the General Electric family. And I was made part of their Six Sigma program, which is their project management methodology, which is this fine combination of people skills and mathematics and statistical skills. So uniquely qualified for a person like me. And I absolutely loved my time at GE. truly loved my time. I became a master black belt, a quality leader, and working on merger acquisition and divestiture opportunities as a culture and change specialist. So I really loved my time at GE. And then Jack decided to retire. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to work for anyone else. And so I retired from GE as well. And I found myself introduced to PricewaterhouseCoopers. And I fell in love with consulting. And I knew that I would never do anything else. And I worked at PwC for a little while until it got sold to IBM. I ended up getting married and having 2 children back to back. And truthfully, one of those children was born with severe special needs. And when we found out the severity of that condition, I quit my job. And I quit my job with no plan. I'm not suggesting that for many people, but I knew.
I do. I do. If it's what you need to do, it's what you need to do.
And that's the point. And that was just it. Because the reality was, I really didn't care if I was poor. I knew that I had a brain. I knew that I had the capability, and I absolutely knew I had the willingness to do just about anything to make sure that my family had what it needed. And so with that being said, I ended up sending out some emails to a handful of friends that said, listen, I'm available. I'll do some independent consulting work. I have no idea what that really means, but I'm here right now. Little did I know that by sending out those handful of emails that one day I would have, within the first 3 months actually, I'd have 2 employees. And within a year, I had 15 employees. And then 13 years later, I would have 100 employees. And I built my own consulting firm, which I then sold to Grant Thornton 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
And so that's how I became part of the family of Grant Thornton, for which I am a partner principal today. And I oversee a solution family known as the Organizational and Operational Transformation family. That's a lot of words. It's a lot of people. And we do a lot of amazing things to help large organizations transform their way of doing business. And I love my time at Grant Thornton. I'm very proud of the organization with which I work. And again, I'm in the world of consulting, for which I love, and it helps to create the best version of myself. So
awesome.
That's my background.
So that is, I keep telling people, as we get older, I said, people, when I was younger, I focused on intelligence, right? I thought that I'm a smart guy. It's all that matters. It doesn't matter how old you are. Yeah, life experience does matter too, and so the older I get, the more I realize, I tell people there is no direct line. There's no straight path to success. It can go wild, just like the evolution of humanity. There's no straight line, and so I look at your background. There was no straight line. Life happened, and you made the adjustments, and that's great. And so there's a lot to unpack here, and I want to dig a little deep on some of these. Number one, I grew up 20 minutes from the University of Georgia, so it was really hard for me not to push stop and just X out the computer. I'm just kidding.
So, and you should know, my father went to Georgia Tech, and the only university in the entire world my father said I could not apply to when going to college or graduate school was the University of Georgia.
It's funny. It's funny. So I wasn't, believe it or not, it was more like 35 minutes from the University of Georgia, just on the South Carolina border is where I was, born and raised, and very rural as well. Your hometown, I saw the name of it. What was it again? The
Cottonwood Point. Yeah, Cottonwood Point, Missouri.
So my hometown was Dewey Rose, Georgia. So that's about as small as it gets. But my father and I were Georgia Tech fans. Even despite living that close to Athens, we were Georgia Tech fans. My brother's always been a Bulldog, and so it was always a little bit of a clash there. But I started pulling for the Bulldogs a few years ago. One of my mates I grew up with, his son was a star on the team and is a star for the Kansas City Chiefs, Mecole Hardman now. So while he was there, I was pulling for him. But the rivalry between Georgia and Florida is something to behold. I've been to the Landing a few times. I've been to that game a few times. It is something fun to see.
Well, you have to realize that when universities don't let you play at their own fields in order to play each other, something must have really gone awry at some point.
It must have been really bad. But all right, so the New York Yankees, that is an amazing thing on several levels. It's you're in the sports world, and this was probably what I'm thinking 15 years ago, or maybe 20 years ago.
Sweet. Many more than that.
Okay.
I am
Well,
54 years of age.
okay.
So
As I say, I'm not gonna ask you to date yourself,
that's
but
okay. I don't mind.
you did with Derek Jeter's first year, so he's already in the Hall of Fame. So I think, or maybe about to be. But
Yeah.
what was it like? I'm sure that's a pretty intense thing working with the Yankees. George Steinbrenner, was a very serious and I wouldn't say shrewd businessman or had the reputation of it, but he was a very good businessman, in the world of baseball and probably the best known owner outside of Jerry Jones in sports history. What was it like working in a sports world, especially at that time? We're here celebrating International Women's Month, and that must have been especially difficult in a male dominated, workplace like that.
It is, but I'm going to dive right in on the topic if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, Mr. Steinbrenner made a statement to me when he and I first met, and I've never forgotten it. And quite frankly, I quote it a lot, and I hope you're ready for it.
I'm ready.
He always reminded me, never let your boobs enter the room before your brains. And the reality of that sentence is really, really strong for women, and in particular today, because the reality is, there is no gender gap between being smart. The reality is you have every opportunity to be the smartest person in the room. If you choose to invest the time to understand the circumstance or the situation and be smart enough to listen when you don't. And when I am mentoring younger women that are looking to grow within even my firm within Grant Thornton or anywhere, whether it's internal, external to where I am right now, I do emphasize that. The reality is people are judging you all the time about what you say, how you say it, when you choose to say it. And you need to remember that. Mm-hmm. It is important to never let the features of your gender drive what people believe about your brain.
Okay, and so that's what I was like when you first said it, I was like, okay, what does he mean by that? And I guess my initial reaction was, did he mean don't let your looks be a plus or a minus, I guess, because
that is not where he was going. He was all about brain. He was all about thinking.
Well, that's good to hear because, you have this reputation of the older businessman. He's set in his ways. He doesn't believe in, women or maybe sometimes minorities and stuff. And it's great to hear a guy who was well seasoned at that point. I guess he was at least 60, 70 years old. Yeah.
He was. And interesting enough, I don't think I ever thought of him as ever leading with gender or race.
Nice. That's wonderful.
He just wanted the best of the best, always. Okay. And his standards were incredibly high, and his expectations were even higher.
So I guess Seinfeld, when he wasn't accurate.
Oh no, there's some really accurate things inside.
Oh really? Some of my best friends, they're all into Seinfeld. My best friend, one of my best friends, Brian, he can quote the whole thing. So he'll be glad to hear that.
Oh yeah.
So from there, and forgive me, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your degrees. Sure. You said you had I know you got a bachelor's at the University of Florida, which is one of the best public institutions in America.
Yes.
And what you said you had a few advanced degrees. I heard you say MBA, statistics, and what else?
Marketing.
Okay. What made you? That's a lot of school. What made you? What was the point behind that? What were you thinking?
You're so funny. Yeah, you and my dad have the same question. So when I went to go graduate with my MBA, the guidance counselor, as you're kind of signing up for your cap and gown, they said, you realize if you'll just take 5 more classes, like 2 more statistics and 3 more marketing, you could have another set of degrees. And I'm like, boom, I can make that happen in a semester all day long. So that's kind of what I did.
Oh, okay. So it was
nothing more glamorous than that. I'm sorry to say.
Well, statistics is a wonderful thing, and so that's good to know. Very also interested in. I would like to learn. You mentioned Six Sigma. Can you just really quickly explain what that is, and why do you think it's? You mentioned that you thought it was very important and that it was very valuable to you. Could you mention what that is and to the audience and tell us why it's valuable?
Sure. Joy Taylor's opinion, my operational definition is Six Sigma, Lean Sigma is a project management methodology that forces the user and its participants to think logically about a problem, why it exists, why we care that it exists, why we care that it should be corrected, and using data, hard, proven data, to determine why it's happening, understand the process that's taking place so that you can improve the process by way of data, not feelings.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. So it's very practical, it's
Very.
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, very cool. And so from there, you, is this the point you took a time off, for your child, or after the Yankees?
Actually, no, I went to the GE, and then I went to PricewaterhouseCoopers. I had my children when I was at PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Okay, all right. So let's go to GM. So Jack Welch. I mean, that is absolutely amazing. You're talking about two guys in the Hall of Fame of business, right? And so Jack Welch is, I mean, he's got to be top 5 or so businessmen in history of America. So what was he like as a leader? What did you learn from him?
Oh, you learned a lot from Jack. Jack was continuously looking for the next thing. Mm-hmm. He pushed his leaders to actually lead. And I think that's the difference. He was not the kind of man that said, hey, let me tell you what to do. He groomed leaders to drive business.
Okay.
He absolutely led his businesses using metrics of performance. And there were always, there's always lines in the sand, and you either made those targets or you don't make those targets. Mm-hmm. He was really clear about that. But he was he was dedicated to the building of leaders, being capable to make decisions. He was very fact-based driven, hence why the Six Sigma program kind of dominated his world of GE. And the notion being that you needed to provide leaders the experience so that they could have conversations about their business, not just stick a finance person in finance, but allow a finance person to exist in marketing, in commercial, in legal. So they had the full lens of the business in order to help drive the future of the organization. And he was really strongly into partnerships. The notion being that you are not any good as a single individual, but you are best when collaborating. So I think that's some of the stronger lessons that I learned from Jack. Yeah. He was also incredibly demanding, and he created the nice balance of fear and excitement. And what I mean by that is you wanted to work for him. You wanted to do great work for him, and quite frankly, all of his leaders. There were some amazing CEOs that worked throughout the entire GE family, for which each of them have earned their own right to be extraordinary business leaders.
Business leaders, that is the key. My mentor was the same way. I wanted to less, disappoint him less than I did my own parents. Like I've got to succeed for you, and I've got to make you proud. So, God bless you for the luck you've had, and not luck. I mean, you got there because you were there, but just to have two amazing leaders like that. And, my first experience really with him, hearing him talk, was when he was on the History Channel, Men Who Built America.
Yes.
He's interviewed there, and I was like, man, this guy, you're right. Even in his little talk there, you're just like sitting up, and you're giving you a little bit of bolt of energy. Right. And so it's cool to have those. And what's the dynamic thing about it is, as you're learning from leaders like that, sooner or later, young leaders or people are going to learn the same thing from you, and my friend who worked for you, that introduced me to you, talks about you the same way you talk about George Steinbrenner and Jack Welch. And I know you don't think of that. You're thinking, no way, but yes. So that's the way, and then sooner or later, she's going to rise through the ranks and be the same thing. So it's like, it's like good parenting. Good leadership is begot good leadership, right? It just keeps going, and people learn from, and they're in the right path instead of going down paths of people who are toxic and treat you poorly and send you on the wrong mental path of how to grow your life. Now, something you did you start PricewaterhouseCoopers before children, or was that, so I'm sorry, I was vigorously writing notes, but I didn't quite get everything. But so you left when Jack left, and then you started consulting, and you found out that you just loved consulting.
Love consulting. I absolutely did. Yes. So after I'd left GE, that's when I went to PricewaterhouseCoopers, fell in love with consulting. then met my husband, had kids, and then the rest is history, if you will. But yeah.
Two questions there. What is it about consulting that you like? What is exciting about that to you?
Oh my gosh! Now, I mean, really, it is truly. I love. It's such a simple sentence. I love consulting.
Yeah.
I love consulting because I like to serve. I really do. I truly love to serve, and I love to work with my clients who are facing challenges and let them realize that they are not alone in the journey. There is likely someone else who has gone before them in the journey, and we're going to learn from their lessons so that your version of that challenge is just a little bit easier. And I also love that I get to work on a variety of different problems every day.
Nice.
I mean, I guess I'm a problem solver. I enjoy the challenge of the problem. And I enjoy the journey that it takes to get from I have a situation that I don't like to a place where I want to be. And I genuinely want to be part of that story. I'm a big storyteller. I pride myself on being a pretty good storyteller. And the notion is, for me, it is all about that journey so that we can then tell the story to people, to the next generation. And obviously we use some of those lessons learned for the next challenge as well.
Yeah. Well, great.
And
I had some friends, that are in the consulting world, and he worked for that company in Colorado. I think he went on his own for a little while. I think he may be back there in a management position. The only thing I knew it was the gold standard, right? Everybody, that's where, the people that were trying to get into that field, that's where they were going. The only thing I know about consulting, and I was looking up while we were talking, was I watched I used to watch a show called The House of Lies. Have you seen that?
Oh, absolutely. I have. And let me tell you, all about consulting. And let me tell you, some of that's really true. I'm sorry.
Really? That was my question. Is that really how it works? Okay.
Not always. Not all of it. A lot of it was exaggerated. Don't get me wrong. But there are some bits of it. Every bit of lie comes a little bit of truth. Don't forget that.
Well, I watched it because John Cheadle is a favorite of mine, and that's the only reason I caught on to it. I wasn't trying to find out about the consulting world, but he's one of my favorite actors, so it was cool to see that. But that's awesome. So I want to back, I guess moving a little towards the personal. You quit from there, even though you loved it, because you had children. You got married. You have now. Well, let me ask you this: this is more of a personal interview. You're a driven person. Is your husband the same as you, or is he a little bit more of a relaxed person to counter you, or not counter, but balance, I guess, with you as a relationship?
All right. So we're going to go on another little journey, a little story here. Okay. So my husband has 2 children from a previous marriage, and I met them very young. So I consider them to be my children as well. So we have 4 children in total.
Okay.
And we are also foster parents.
Oh,
okay. My husband and I, in the last 7 years, have had 19 children in our home. And we believe very strongly in sibling placements. There are many foster programs that cannot accommodate that. But my husband and I feel very strongly that you should never split children up. So it is not uncommon. We've had 2 placements of 4 siblings over the course of these 7 years. But so to describe my husband makes me very happy. He lets me be me, and he gets me. And that is a gift that I think many people probably strive to achieve. But my husband is actually a former professional football player.
Oh.
And then, yes, exactly. And then he left football and he sold beer for almost 28 years.
Good work.
When our daughter, hard work actually. Mm-hmm. And when my daughter, the one with special needs, got to about the age of 7, she quite frankly became a little too difficult to manage. And so he decided to retire, and he became a stay-at-home dad.
Well, awesome.
And the reality is, he is a significantly greater stay-at-home parent than I could probably be. But because of that, we offer a really nice balance, and he and I make a great team. I mean, without over gushing, the truth of the matter is,
well, gush.
Couldn't be happier. My husband is the most amazing human being on the planet who lets me be everything I need to be without judgment. And for that, I have been granted a gift of a lifetime.
Oh, great. That is really that's fantastic to hear. And, and great on him too, because, you and Pac there, you kind of touched on a few things in life. that I guess what are not cliches, but stereotypes of thinking is like, number one, that men can't be men, with a woman who is strong, right? And you can still be the man in the relationship. You can still have somewhat traditional roles. It's, I'm not married, but I wouldn't care if good for her if she makes more money than me. It doesn't mean anything. What if you're a teacher? I mean, that's important as any job in America, but it just doesn't pay well. I mean, it's a public servant job. And, that's awesome because, you're right. You have to be able to let go of some of the things that men were taught early, and that's that you have to make more money, you have to do this, and be a real man, and because it doesn't take away from it at all. And I love to hear that. And it's not what you do with children. I mean, 19 foster children. That I didn't know that before this conversation. I didn't have any hint of that before this conversation. So I respected you before. When I knew your career, I lost respect for you when I found out you were a Gator, but I gained it back much. Your foster children, because I too am a believer in giving to this world, giving back to this world, because you and I both are fortunate people. We've been able to do the things we want to do, outside of this, podcasting world. I'm able to produce products that I want to produce, and it's really, really great to be able to do the things you love. But giving back is the true mark of your place in this world, and in how you leave the world. I work, I've been blessed to work with an organization called Tricker's Toys that works with children. It's one of my best friends, started it years ago. And I've also just began work with an organization called Red M Redeemed Movement. It's an organization that works with sexual slavery and rescuing women from sexual slavery, which has become something over the years important to me, or something, a need that's there, that's bigger than people think it is, and a little underappreciated. So I can't imagine the work you've put in to do this, and for that, God bless you for that. And I think that's wonderful. And how old are your children now? All four of them?
All four. So we have Amanda, who's 30. We have Anthony, who's 28. We have Taylor, who is 18. And Egan, she is 17.
Okay. And have any of them followed you into the business or the type of business work you do?
Not yet. I have one that's a special education teacher, one that is a supply chain management expert. And then my 18-year-old is going to college next year, and my 17-year-old, we don't know what's going to happen quite yet with that one, but
so yes, they did follow you. Special needs. That child followed you. That followed your lead, and also you remember your statistics.
That's true.
So that child was absolutely influenced by you too. A couple of before we go, like I said, as I mentioned when I asked you to do this, this was about shining a spotlight on women who have achieved, and I am very careful. In this line of appreciating International Women's Day and things like that, to be careful not to cross a line into patting you on the head and infantilizing and pretending, and somehow pretending that you need help. No, you don't. You just need, it just needs to be clearer known in the public, because when you said something about very early on with the gender gap and things like that, there is a gender gap for young men and women, and it's women who are more educated now. Women are more students in college. They are getting degrees at a higher level. And if you're under 30, you're making more money than men. So, the work is being done, right? And so I love it. A couple of questions, though, since this is the theme of this podcast. What advice would you give to women that are in the business world now, and some of them are still joining organizations that are male dominated? What are some key advices that you would give those young women in entering this world?
My first one is going to be seek the experience. Don't make any assumptions about what the job is or is not going to be. Seek the experience you can have with anybody in your organization. And then the second thing is, do great work. Whatever the work is, I don't care if that is coloring. If someone asks you to color something, you color it like it was a piece of Picasso. And the reality is, because when you do great work, you will then get more experiences. And when you get experiences, you have a story to tell. And when you have a story to tell, people want to hear it. Because I'm going to go back on something I said earlier. If you've done something before and someone has not, and they need help, they're going to call you because you've been there before. And that is a gift that turns into a talent. And if that is what you have, then you are well on your way to a very leadership opportunity, regardless of where you are existing in the world.
That's wonderful to hear you say, because I'm at the point now where I'm starting to be that. People, I have young people asking me, I was in the Army for a long time, and when one of my friends' children, they have a child that may be interested in the military, they're talking to me. Or I've traveled a lot, so they're talking to me. And in business world, and designing products, they're talking to me. I got to speak with 1,800 children through a similar setup, an online setup about manufacturing and designing products. So that is really, and I can tell you enjoy it, and I love it. I mean, it's not an annoyance. I jump at the opportunity to help, because really, like I said earlier, that's your mark on the world, is, not what you do for yourself, but how are you going to pass that on to other people, right? And so, and you and I, I noticed you don't really have your accent anymore. I never moved out of the South, so I never lost mine. So
I'm embarrassed to tell you that I had to work at that, because I can turn it on. If you want me to turn it on, I can turn it on right now. But
they don't know that about us, do they? I used to, and I'm sure you had the same. You were an intelligent woman who was entering, the business world, and I was an intelligent guy entering the business world. I tried to turn it off because I thought it was associated with ignorance, right? And so, but I think we're running up here on time. I can't thank you enough for giving me your time today. I couldn't think of a more wonderful woman to spotlight today, and to let you tell your story and how you got to where you're at. And boy, lots of surprises here. So learned a lot, and it was I didn't think some of these things were coming, and I'm very happy to actually know you better now, and actually know you at all now. So.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was quite a pleasure to have been asked. And it's a delight to meet you. I'm sorry that we haven't met sooner. Hopefully we'll meet again.
All right. And again, Joy Taylor, she is the principal of Grant Thornton and a national managing partner. Where can people learn about your company and more about you?
Grant Thornton is the name of the organization. You can Google us and we will show up at gt.com probably. And I'm on LinkedIn. You're certainly welcome to find me, Joy Taylor.
Joy, it was a blessing to hear you talk and to get to know your story and you. And thank you so much. And I know you're about to go on a trip, and safe travels. And I hope to hear more about your future successes.
I hope so. We'll talk again soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.